Thanks, Chrissy, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for the opportunity to bring you up to speed with the latest news that Azure Minerals has got with our Andover project. As Chrissy just said earlier, it was originally 3 years ago we picked up the project because of the nickel sulphide potential of the project, and we discovered 2 nickel, copper, cobalt sulphide deposits on the project area, and that was in the first 2 years. And over the last 18 months or so we've been able to refocus our exploration into other commodities, in particular lithium. This is a photograph, a drone shot of part of the Andover project area. As you can see, there's very little in the way of vegetation. There's low rolling hills, and lots and lots of outcrop. Most of the rocks in the area are outcrop, so it makes exploration really easy, or relatively straightforward, in terms of boots on the ground, traditional geology, mapping and sampling as you go, and actually observing and discovering outcropping mineralisation, which is quite remarkable in this day and age in a location which is only 3 kilometres away from the nearest town of Rovira. So we've got geologists that have been out on the ground now for over 3 years. They've discovered outcropping nickel and copper mineralisation, and now more recently we've been discovering the outcropping lithium mineralisation. The usual disclaimer and statements which can be found on our website. The first thing I do want to do is acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we operate, the Ngarluma people. It's very important for us, if we want to operate on their land, that we're able to do so in a very responsible manner. We've built a very strong and positive relationship with Ngarluma, and we respect their ownership of the land. We thank them very much for the cooperation that they've been able to provide to us so that we can continue with our exploration. So the main highlight to take away from this particular presentation is that Andover is one of the best lithium exploration projects in the world. It is one of the exploration projects with the greatest resource potential. We've addressed that by putting out a few weeks ago an exploration target of between 100 to 240 million tonnes of resource mineralisation at grades of around between 1 and 1.5% lithium. Now that exploration target is a range because it is a defined term as defined by the ASX. If we are successful in the exploration that we're undertaking and the resource definition drilling that is happening right now, and we were to identify 100 million tonnes of mineral resource, that would probably put us in about number 10 or maybe number 11 in the world today. If we come up with a resource that's going to be at the upper end of that range, around the 240 million tonne scale, then Andover potentially could be top 5 or even higher in terms of the overall resource endowment, in top 5 in the world. So this resource potential is enormous. That's the exploration target that we have right now. We've currently got multiple drill rigs drilling on the ground. We expect to be able to have the maiden mineral resource out in the first quarter of next year. Importantly, from the point of view, is the support that we've been getting from our shareholders. Our largest shareholder now is SQM. SQM is the Chilean lithium producer, number 1 or number 2 in the world in terms of total lithium production. SQM became our largest shareholder at the beginning of this year with an investment of $20 million to buy 20% of Azure, which was a significant premium to our valuation at that time. And since then, obviously, our share price has increased, the value of the company's increased, and SQM have obviously been very happy with the outcome of that investment. Recently, we undertook a capital raising, and SQM followed their money by putting in another $20 million to maintain 20% holding in Azure. The Creasy Group is our second largest shareholder. Mark Creasy was the entrepreneur and very successful mining prospector in Western Australia. We bought the project from him. In fact, we bought 60% ownership of the project from him by issuing shares in the company, and that gave him about an 18% shareholding in Azure. That's since been diluted down to about 13% by the incoming of SQM at the beginning of this year. So the Andover project is a joint venture. It's a 60% owned by Azure, 40% still owned by Creasy. His 40% is free carried through to the decision to mine, and we are sole contributors to all costs going forward until that decision to mine point of view. This is probably one of the more exciting share price graphs that you're going to see in Australia this year. In the last 12 months, we've gone from a share price that was sub 20 cents to now up around $2.70 today. It's quite remarkable how our discovery of the Andover lithium mineralisation has taken the market by storm. It's actually been incredibly well received, and the excitement factor is enormous. We've got about 440 million shares on issue. As I mentioned, we're in the process of completing a capital raising to raise $120 million. That is a two-stage, two-tranche transaction. We've raised the first $100 million, that's in now. The other $20 million is subject to shareholder approval, which is happening in about a month's time. And then at the back end of that, we'll have about $137 million in the bank. And in addition to that, we're currently carrying out an SPP right now to raise about $10 million, an additional $10 million. So come the end of this month or early part of October, we will have around over $145 million in the bank. So the company's incredibly well cashed up. So where is the Andover project? It's located in the West Pilbara region of Western Australia, so just outside the town of Karratha and Roebourne. We fly 2 hours from Perth to Karratha. A half an hour's drive along the Northwest Coastal Highway, goes through the town of Roebourne and then into and through the Andover project area. Also going through the project area, we've got a gas pipeline, a water pipeline, high voltage power lines. There's roads and tracks throughout the property as well. To the south of us, Rio Tinto have got some operating iron ore mines with an export railway line that runs up our western project boundary up to Cape Lambert in the top right-hand corner of that image, which is one of their 2 major iron ore exporting ports. Offshore, we've got oil and gas production facilities from Chevron and Woodside. There's onshore LNG processing facilities on the Burrup Peninsula next to the Port of Dampier. And of course, the Port of Dampier is a multi-user commercial port which is used for bulk commodity exports. So this is a heavily industrialised area with absolutely world-class infrastructure, and we've got our property of 108 square kilometres sitting right in the middle of it with the ability to tap into a lot of that infrastructure for the development and production of our project. Zooming in onto the project area itself now. So it's 108 square kilometres, 3 exploration licences outlined in blue there, hundreds and hundreds of outcropping pegmatites that are contained within a triangular wedge that strikes between the southwest up to the northeast. That pegmatite swarm is around about 9 kilometres long east-west by 5 kilometres, up to 5 kilometres wide north-south. We've started drilling in there, and we're drilling these multiple pegmatites. We've actually got a budget of 100,000 metres of diamond and RC drilling that's budgeted and programmed for this year. We've completed 42,000 metres of diamond and RC drilling up till now. It's an incredibly busy drilling program. So if we zoom in a little bit and we have a look at the main area where we're currently drilling, target area number 1, multiple stacked pegmatites striking southwest to northeast, dipping towards the northwest. We've drilled 69 diamond holes up until yesterday for about 25,000 metres of diamond core and 86 holes for 17,000 metres of RC. So 155 drill holes have been drilled into this area since we started drilling in March of this year for around about 42,000 metres of drilling, and quite incredible production that we've got going out there. We've currently got 5 diamond rigs on site, 2 RC rigs, and we have another diamond rig that's turning up sometime in the next few days as well. So we're accelerating the drilling program there. The mineralisation has been identified in this little area over 2 kilometres long. Individual pegmatites can be well over 100 metres thick, containing significant lithium mineralisation. And there's 2 cross sections which are shown there as those 2 yellow lines, and we zoom in and have a look at those now. The mineralisation outcrops as lithium-enriched pegmatites containing the preferred lithium mineral of spodumene. Those pegmatites then dip down towards at about 45 degrees towards the northwest, and they seem to be getting fatter with depth. And as we've been drilling deeper, we've been hitting broader and broader intersections of mineralisation. And we've currently drilled down to, in some areas, down to 400 metres below surface. And these pegmatites are over 100 metres fat and contain significant amounts of lithium mineralisation. And if we have a look at some of the better or broader mineralised intersections that we've released publicly, you can see them there anywhere between 90 to over 200 metres of intersection width of high-grade lithium mineralisation ranging between 1 and 1.5% lithium, and probably the average grade would be around about the 1.2 to 1.3%. lithium, and very broad intersections. And not only are they broad down the hole, but they're also broad in true width. We're actually been able to drill these pegmatites fairly close to perpendicular to their dip and their strike. So we've been able to get some very continuous true width of mineralisation that is quite significant. And that mineralisation is continuous over a couple of kilometres in length and from surface to over 400 metres down. So where to from here? We're continuing. We're mobilising more rigs to site. The target area number 1, which is where we're currently drilling, we should have finished the resource drill out in that sometime during the month of September. Meanwhile, we've got rigs moving into target area number 2, and right now we've got 3 rigs in there, and we've got rigs going into target area number 3 next week. Those 2 new areas have also got abundant outcropping pegmatites containing a lot of visible spodumene within them at surface, and we've got very high grades of rock chip sampling that's been happening there over the last year or so. So these areas are high priority and highly prospective for significant lithium resources. And that exploration, that resource drilling will be continuing throughout the rest of this year to enable us to present a maiden mineral resource in the first quarter of next year. But in addition to that, the drilling will continue, and I expect that roughly this same number of drill rigs, maybe half a dozen drill rigs, will be continuing to drill out this lithium mineralisation throughout 2024, so one could expect upgraded mineral resources to be announced later on next year. So we zoom in a little bit to that target area 1 and 2, so you can see the left-hand side target area number 1, that's where almost all the drilling has been carried up till now. We have moved, as I mentioned, 3 diamond rigs up to target area number 2. We've completed 11 holes to date out there, and I can't talk about what we're seeing in the drill holes at this stage, and we've not released any assay information for that drilling at this stage. But what I can confidently say is that we wouldn't be having 3 rigs up there drilling continuously and planning on continuing to drill there in the weeks ahead if we weren't being encouraged by what we could see in the drill core. And I'd better leave it at that point for now. So where to from here for the company and the project? Well, that exploration target will be converted into a mineral resource in the first quarter of next year. As I mentioned earlier, if we're at the low end of that range, we'll be potentially top 10 in the world in terms of lithium size. If we're in the top end of that range, we'll be definitely in the top 5 of the lithium resources anywhere in the world. This project at Andover is quite remarkable in the continuity and the consistency of the lithium mineralisation that we're hitting in the drilling, and potentially could be one of the largest ever found. We're that confident. We have started on our scoping study activities, so we have metallurgy test work studies underway. We've got geotechnical and mining studies happening. Heritage surveys are always ongoing with the Ngarluma people. We need to have their cooperation and consent to be able to operate out there, and I do thank them for enabling us to do that. We've got a lot of other different studies happening as well, and that scoping study, if all goes well, should be completed, we expect, by the end of next year. So the Andover project is really quite remarkable. It's just the project that literally just keeps on giving. Firstly, we've discovered 2 nickel and copper sulfide deposits. Then we've discovered this absolutely enormous lithium mineralised zone. So it's quite remarkable, and it just blows us away as to how good this actually is. And so just in summary, I'd say that the company, Azure, together with the project, Andover, we are together building what is going to be an incredibly bright future in the Pilbara region. Thank you very much.